What motivated you to write a book? Where did that, like, when was it? What mindset were you in when you said, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to focus, and I'm going to write this dang book? How did that
And
happen?
I'm embarrassed to say that it was the poorest mindset. And the mindset was all ego driven. And I'm going to write a book because I want to be an author. And it was the most hellish experience that I went through for the first few months to do that. And the book that very first draft, I had hired a coach to help me put it together. Somebody who had already done this a few times before, and we went through the final manuscript. And I looked at this, and I said to myself, "This is utter crap. I cannot put this out there." And that was entirely because I was writing it on the basis of promoting myself and positioning myself as an author. And at that moment, there was an epiphany, and that was simply, this isn't about me. This is about my audience. This is about the reader. And so I shifted the lens, and I was already committed to this process this time. I had a lot of money already into time and money invested in this. I was on a schedule, and I realized, I got to write something that people want to read, not something that promotes my ego drives. And so that was a complete change of path for me, and it's a completely different lens. And I was able to write that book, and it still took about 12 months from that point. I wasted 6, and it took me another 12 months, but then it all came together based on what do my clients, what would they want to see in this book if I wasn't there to consult? And that's the genesis of what became the 7 Essential Stories Charismatic Leaders Tell. It's a leadership book, but the flip side of that, Daniel, it's a leadership book, but the flip side of that is it's also leadership in marketplaces. So you can do both of those things together.
And like you said before, it's about the customer, isn't it? I mean,
Always.
ultimately, it's about your customer. It's about your audience. It's about trying to bring value to, and I got off another podcast, and I was talking with the guy who's marketing guy as well. And I said, I've always came from the mindset, look, I want to make a lot of money. We all want to make billions of dollars. We all want to become wealthy. We all want everything that we want. But ultimately, you can't get that if you don't give what you need to give. If your audience doesn't appreciate your value, and you're not, and I always look at it as a win-win situation, right? I'm always looking for win-wins, man. How can I help them win? If I help them win, I win. Everybody wins, and then life is good, and life is easy, and life is fun, and then it's more fun of a life because everybody's winning. Does that make any sense to you?
More sense than you might imagine, because that's not the way I thought in my 20s, but it's the clear way I think in my 50s. Um, I have a much more of a spiritual approach in my 50s than I ever did in my 20s. I wouldn't even known what that meant in my 20s, right? But life, it really is, you get what you give, and karma is perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so when you look at social media and you look at the way that people market, because I want to hit on kind of marketing a little bit, and then I want to end with leadership. I want to have a little leadership conversation. But when you think about marketing, where are the mistakes that people are making in their marketing, on their social media, their branding, their LinkedIn, their Instagram, their Facebook? Can you touch on that a little bit?
Ultimately, it comes down to first of all, not understanding that this isn't about you, it's about the customer as hero. That's the very first thing. The other part of it is that, what if the customer is the hero of the story, and you are that wise wizard, fairy godmother, providing them with the tools to enable the promise in the story, to get them to that final destination. Then your ultimate thing is to be functionally relevant and emotionally significant to them in all of your interactions. And if your sales process, for example, marketing process, has 8 stages, there's no such thing as a sale. There's actually sales, there's plural. There are at least 8, maybe 9 separate sales, depending on where you think you start and stop, right? But each of those stages has to add value to that customer. The only time the cash transaction, the product is exchanged is probably in stage 7 or 8. Stage 7 and 8, hopefully they become a raving advocate of yours, right? Raving fan. But the actual cash transaction is way down there. So what do you do in the first 7 stages? You have to continually add successive stages of value. And that's where people get lost. They want to do the slam dunk and, close that sale. Really tough if you haven't created value in that prospect's mind in successive stages along the way.
Yeah, it reminds me about kind of what I did early on as I built my business based on modules. It was just little, I called them closes, right? I mean, here's close number 1, here's close number 2, here's close number, and basically it was just questions getting an affirmative yes. It just, they were saying yes to me on this area. So it was very easy. I got very little objections at the end of the day. And so does any of that make sense to you?
More than you can imagine. Again, this idea of breaking it up into a series of relationship stages. So my little digital marketing company is a company called Socialite Communications. We use a methodology called the customer value journey. And it's a customer journey, but at each of these stages, what we're doing is increasing the familiarity, the rapport, the authority, the liking as we move along. And we may be exchanging, lead magnets and tripwire offers along the way. But ultimately, it is based on the stages of human intimacy. How do you, create that initial stage of the relationship and take it all the way to what it is going to become? If it's a couple, how do you meet eyes across the room? Eventually, you're starting a family, along the way. Well, you just don't go start a family. There's a set of very prescribed stages along the way if you're going to make that ultimate relationship last.
So one of your chapters in your book, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about if somebody goes and gets your book today, what's maybe one of the chapters in there that we're going to learn about that maybe you can add some thoughts here today?
Okay, so there's 2 actually big sections of the book. The very first section is all about culture, and culture is the always on operating system that guides behavior even when there's no one to watch, reward, or punish that behavior. Your people just know what to do. And so the 7 stories are what you infuse that culture with to make it come alive. So the very first thing is, if you don't have anything to capture the stories just bounce off. It's like going against bulletproof glass, right? It just bounces off. So you need a vibrant culture to begin with. And the first half of the book will tell you what the 7 pillars of the vibrant culture are. Now we go to the 7 stories. And my favorite story has got to be, and these are story categories. My favorite story category has got to be the mighty winds. And the mighty winds and this is relevant to any one of your customers. I don't care what you're selling. It doesn't matter what you are selling. Because the mighty winds is all about the big macro trends in the environment that affect everybody. You, your customers, the competition, your suppliers, everybody's affected by the macro trends. 6 common macro trends. They're societal, technological, economic, environmental, political, and legislative trends. And these trends create tsunamis of opportunity and tidal waves of destruction in their wake. They don't care whether it enriches you with opportunity or destroys your business and your people in the process. I'll give you some examples of this. So one of the clearest things that have happened in investment circles in the last 60, 70 years has been the boomer generation. Right, so the boomer generation, and it created all sorts of opportunities, not only for the stock market, but what the implications were for a variety of different industries. The boomers coincided very well with this whole process of suburbanization, which coincided quite well with this advances in automobile production and the subsequent affordability of automobiles and this whole idea of middle class, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we've got this whole big chunk, and I think the U.S. is probably like 77 million people fall into that category. And the front end of that is probably in 1947. So how old would they be now? About 75 now, something like that. 1947. So That crowd now is not acquiring things to put in their new suburban home. They are in wealth transition mode. They're going to be bequeathing their assets to the next generation, right? But the economy as a whole needs, the way this current economy is structured, it is very much in need of consumers. So who is that new consuming generation? And what we're finding right now, and we're well past Generation X, well past the millennials and whatever comes after that, they're not really as interested in home ownership anymore. A lot of them aren't even interested in driving. Mom and dad carted them around all over the place. What are the implications if you are in the wealth management business for investing in industries that have traditionally done well? Home building, appliance, provision, fridges, stoves, this whole idea of, cars, ownership, let alone car leasing. It impacts absolutely everything. That's all based in a set of macro trends, based in that societal aspect, subcategory, demographics, right? And by following that out, it tells you clearly, you know what? Maybe you don't want to be investing in the automobile industry as a 30-year horizon, because it's my belief that no one's going to own autos anymore. With the advances in artificial intelligence, another trend, and self-driving, you're seeing Tesla do it, but also Ford and lots of different companies, Google, Intel, lots of people. I'm probably going to subscribe to a service. So I'm going to subscribe to a Ford service or a Lincoln service or a Mercedes service. And the car hopefully just shows up. I hop in the back and away we go. Because the ultimate thing that a car provides for me is instantaneous, on-demand, private transportation. Well, that self-driving car can do the same thing. I just wanted to show up clean and at a level that I can, show up the way I want to show up at the restaurant.
Thank you for watching our short clips on Alonzo Academy. If you'd like to watch the next short clip, click here. If you'd like to watch the entire podcast, click here.